Welcome to the Loud Nerd in the Basement podcast, a spin-off of the Substack Loud Nerd in the Basement, your home for authentic news and reviews on nerdy movies and TV shows. Now, time for the Friday News Roundup. Well, welcome back to another Friday News Roundup edition of the Loud Nerd in the Basement podcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam Zolnai. Thank you so much for listening, however you may be listening. As always, this podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Substack, and YouTube. As always, I highly recommend checking out the YouTube channel just because I put up a few shorts a week. I haven't been doing that as much the last couple weeks, and I apologize. Just been really busy and also having a hard time sometimes brainstorming topics for me to talk about. So I don't want to just waste your time with me just yakking about random nonsense for 5 minutes. But as always, thank you so much for your support. And if you want to support this as a paid member, you can do that. I have a sale right now, 20% off for 12 months on a monthly subscription right now to my Substack. And with that paid subscription, normally it's $6 a month, and with 20% off, that'll put you a little over $4. So again, a cup of coffee. I wish I could say a McDonald's meal, but McDonald's is ridiculously expensive now. Thanks, inflation. With that, you will get access to spoiler articles like the one I did for Spider-Man Brand New Day, and then of course coming up later on this year, I'll have ones for probably Clayface, for Dune Part 3, Avengers Doomsday, where I have my spoiler-free review that comes out for everybody, both free and paid subscribers, and then I have all my spoiler thoughts in a separate article for just paid subscribers. So if you want to hear like, oh, what did he think about, Doctor Doom's reveal, or this character's death, or this reveal, I can get into all that while not having to spoil it for people that haven't seen the movie yet, especially for like those ones at the end of the year where I still can't believe we're getting 2 major blockbusters a week from Christmas. I'm still stressing about how I'm going to see both of those and have reviews and everything written before the holidays. But that's a 6 months, or golly, not even 6 months, 4 months down the line problem. But as always, thank you for your support. Also, with the paid tier, you get the ability to submit questions that I will answer here on the podcast. I have one today. I always get good ones from you guys, and I love doing them. You also get access to my rewind reviews. I did one for the Rocketeer this past month, and I have one coming out in a couple weeks that I think you'll find very topical, considering what's coming out in December, but I won't spoil that until later. You get access to that, and because you're a paid member, you get to request movies that I do for those rewind reviews. So if you want me to review a certain superhero movie, a nerd movie, a Star Wars movie, whatever it may be, just submit it. Again, no horror movies, please. I really don't like those. It'll just be me writing. I didn't watch much of this because I had my eyes closed and my ears plugged, but if you really want to read that review, I guess I could do it. But again, thank you so much. However you're supporting me, whether it's just listening and subscribing and liking and all that stuff that makes the algorithm gods happy, or if you're on the paid tier, I truly, truly appreciate it. I love doing this. I have no plans to stop anytime soon. So it's just awesome. But let's get into the news, and we're going to start off with something that's not so awesome, but I wanted to start with this first just because of who it involves. I just felt that it's not one of those things I wanted to bury at the end of the podcast. We had 2 sad deaths this past week in the world of entertainment. Dolly Parton and Tim Curry passed within a day of each other, both at the age of 80, which was kind of crazy. Really sad. Dolly Parton was more of a surprise. Tim Curry, I know, had some health issues. And so, not to be mean, but it's one of those things where it's like, I get why he passed away. It's like when John Williams finally passes. It's like, well, the dude's in his mid to late 90s. I'm sad, but I'm not shocked. But either way, these were very sad. Tim Curry, my first exposure to him was in Muppet Treasure Island, and I loved him as Long John Silver there. And he talked about how he basically pretended he was just one of the Muppets. and he did a great job in that role. Very memorable. Just made a huge impression on me as a kid. He also obviously in Rocky Horror Picture Show. He was the main character in that. I can't remember the name of it. I've only seen it once. Apologies, but he was great in that. Home Alone 2. He was great. That he just had a bunch of great scenes in that movie. The man had comedic timing. I mean, Clue. He also did some voice work. He almost was the voice for Joker in the Batman animated series in the 90s before Mark Hamill ended up getting that role. I actually heard a little bit of his audition. It didn't sound bad. He did other voice work too, where he was actually the Emperor for seasons 5 and 6 of Star Wars The Clone Wars. And he did a great job. He did a great Ian McDiarmid impression. Like, the man was a talented actor, seemed to have a lot of, had a great sense of humor and just self-awareness and humility about him, where he knew what kind of actor he was. He wasn't ashamed of his quirkiness, and he kind of let that really come out in his roles. I mean, he was Pennywise in the It TV show or TV series. He was great in that. So I mean, the man leaves behind a ton of work that I think future generations will still appreciate, and I hope they continue to discover even some more of the not so well known works of his. And then as far as Dolly Parton, I mean, that hurts. She was one of those people where it really felt like kind of like Tim Curry. You were getting the authentic self with her. There was no public persona or the mask coming on and off, or this is my game face, this is me behind the scenes. Like, you never heard a bad word about her. She seemed to just be a lovely, lovely person. Very talented, obviously, with her singing and acting. One of the last roles I saw her in was when she cameoed in the TV show The Orville, and I really liked that cameo and how they kind of used her song to inspire a alien species to basically fight for equal rights for women. And I thought that was really cool and a unique way to do that. And she showed up and talked to one of the aliens, and she did a great job. Just, again, lovely woman. She did a lot for charity. I mean, if you have kids, she has I believe it's called the Imagination Library, where you get a monthly book for your kids, depending on their age range. You'll give a book that's more targeted towards that age of a child, and we did that, and their books are very good, very high quality, no AI garbage, really good stories that I enjoy reading to my kids. They're not irritating, and they're not talking down to the kids, which a lot of kids' books do. So, I mean, the world lost two really, really amazing people this week, and that's sad, and it stinks kind of being that time of all your childhood actors and heroes kind of growing old and getting to the point where they won't be around much longer. It stinks, and man, they will not be forgotten. That's all I have to say. So thank you, Dolly Parton and Tim Curry, for everything you did for this world. And with that, we will move on to some more happier news. I guess happier news depending on who you are. First, we got some news on DC. Obviously, we've been talking about the Jimmy Olsen show, which has been in production, that we now know is also going to include Gorilla Grodd as a second or second main character. And now it's gotten an official title. It's called The People versus Gorilla Grodd. It's going to be a mockumentary series, so in the style of like an Office or Parks and Rec, that kind of thing, or Modern Family. It's going to be a comedy. American Vandal creators Tony Yacinda and Dan Perrault will serve as showrunners, and apparently they already did it's going to be a true crime documentary where basically Jimmy Olsen is figuring out if Gorilla Grodd actually murdered the head of Gorilla City or not. And so I'm really excited for this. A lot of people from the Daily Planet that were in the Superman movie are coming back to reprise their roles, which I'm excited about. It's basically going to be the Daily Planet show that we've been wanting, and I think will work really well. And I'm excited for this because it's not going to be anything that is overly complicated or is going to be a must-see TV, but it's a fun little, just kind of everyday look in the life of the DC universe that James Gunn is building. Another way to kind of expand that. Again, I don't think so. This would happen, but I would love to maybe get like a Flash cameo at the end of, even if they maybe do kind of like a the fun thing where the person's in shadow and their voice is all jarbled and it's just, yeah, I'm the Flash, and I can confirm that Gorilla Grodd is very much a villain based on how many times I fought. I mean, one time he made me think that I was a baby and I clucked around like a chicken or something. Something like that would be really fun, even if they don't have a person cast for that yet. I expect, if nothing else, we would probably get at least a Flash name drop. I would hope so. Considering that this seems to be very much an established universe that has other heroes besides Superman in it already. Obviously, they have Lanterns going on right now, which is a very different show from something like this. But I love the different tones and feels for each of these shows because that's how the comics are. Like, I know a lot of people are like, well, how could Punisher be in a Spider-Man movie when Punisher's R-rated and Spider-Man's very much not? And then, obviously, Brand New Day showed that could work because the whole idea is that these... I mean, it's the same thing as our modern world, where it's like, my world is very different from someone, who's a drug dealer on the south side of Chicago or something. Like, they're the same world, same universe and all that, very different experiences. It's almost like people's experiences are completely different from one another, and it's just that it can be the same with a shared universe, and I like that. It'll help kind of keep away the accusations that the MCU gets where everything feels kind of the same and has the same tone and feel to it. So I'm excited for that, and we actually got a tagline for the show that states, and I quote, "A super intelligent ape is convicted of murdering his father, the king of Gorilla City. In an 8-part true crime docuseries, the Daily Planet's Jimmy Olsen reopens the case, investigating whether Gorilla Grodd was wrongly convicted in one of Metropolis's most famous murder trials." So it's going to take place in Metropolis, which again makes sense because you have the Daily Planet involved. But man, I really hope we get a mention of the Flash because, I mean, Gorilla Grodd, for those of you who don't know, is a Flash villain. He's a psychic gorilla from a race of psychic gorilla people, and the whole idea is he's all about world domination and the normal supervillain stuff. I mean, he's a gorilla. He's not going to have that complex of a plan, but I'm excited for this. And again, this is a fun way to kind of slowly expand the new DC universe. My guess is they don't have a release date for this. Let me look through the article. Yeah, I don't see a release date, but my guess would be, considering that it's going to be like a mockumentary comedy style thing, so very much you don't need a lot of sets, and the only CGI is probably going to be for Gorilla Grodd. My guess is this probably will come out probably late next year, maybe like August or September. It'll drop, which would make sense and actually work really well. You have Superman come out in July, and then boom, 2 months later or a month later, this drops and kind of keeps that momentum going until we get to the Batman Part 2 in February. So I'm excited for this. Again, it's just a little fun show from the sounds of it. They're not hyping it up as like, this is the next big step in, the DC universe. It's just, hey, here's a little fun peek into the DC universe. And I remember people talking about Marvel doing something like this with like Damage Control. Like, what would it be like to just have a boots on the ground, just a normal person's view of this crazy superhero universe? And I'm glad we're getting that. And I loved the Daily Planet cast in Superman. Jimmy Olsen was great in it, and it felt like comic Jimmy Olsen. So any more reason to see those characters is good with me. And like Perry White and Steve Lombard and Cat Grant, all those actors are returning to their respective roles. So I'm excited. I can't wait. But moving on to the other side, Marvel. Here's something that I'm not very excited for. See, I'm getting good at these transition guys. I'm 23 episodes in now, so eventually it'll just be seamlessly smooth, and you'll just be like, whoa. That was amazing. I'm so impressed. But obviously Marvel's gearing up for Doomsday. And with that, we have Avengers Endgame Encore, which we've talked about before. Finally got a trailer release and a release date. And we also got some more information on what exactly is going to be in this new version of Avengers Endgame. Because obviously the Russo brothers have been talking it up as, you've got to see this version of Endgame to really, fully prepare for Doomsday and all that. And I've stated on the record, I don't like that idea of having to retcon a 7-year-old movie in order to make your new movie work. Like, that was the job of however many movies came in between those 7 years, not a 7-year-old movie getting retroactively made even more important. But we do have some more details now, and the biggest thing that has a lot of people kind of up in arms and a little annoyed is that they have confirmed this is only going to have 4 extra minutes of added footage in the re-release. So instead of it being like 3 hours and 5 minutes, it's 3 hours and 9. So my guess is that just means there's going to be maybe like one deleted scene that they put back in and added the effects for. And again, my theory is at the end of the movie, when it shows Captain America and Peggy together dancing, when Cap has gone back in time to return the stones and stays back in time, my guess is that as it pans out at the end of the movie from their house as they're dancing, maybe you have Loki or Doctor Doom show up and say, hey, universe is in danger, we need your help. Or it fast forwards, 2 years later, because we know that Steve Rogers has a child now, and based on the trailers. So I wonder if it would be like, okay, 2 years later, and then it's like, him holding the baby and stuff. Like, my guess is it's going to be footage from Doomsday that's just been kind of cut into this, because they've done that before. Like, I remember at the end of Ant-Man, the after credit scene was just literally a scene from Civil War with Bucky, Sam, and Cap, that then we just resaw in the movie when it came out. So I imagine that that's probably what it's going to be. But to me, this says that this is more of a cash grab than an actual, no, this is a retconning, which on the one hand, I'm happy that it's not going to be like, we added 30 minutes of extra footage or an hour of extra footage that's going to be hugely important, because I was like, how in the world are they going to do this and make this required viewing, but then also be like, well, okay, but if I didn't see it the 1 or 2 weekends that it's out, because I don't think this is going to be in theaters that long, not unless it's just raking, billions and billions of dollars into the box office. I imagine it'll be in there for like a week or two, because you're going to have other movies coming out, and theaters are going to be like, look, we need room for our new movies coming out, not ones that came out 7 years ago. So I'm happy on the one hand that it's just probably going to be an extra scene or two that they'll probably, I imagine, release on YouTube in like October, end of October, just to be like, hey, here's the little hint. But on top of that, but my biggest issue is then it feels like more of a, we want to make more money off of a movie that we know people like. And also, I think they're doing this to get the Avengers name back in the cultural zeitgeist, because there hasn't been an Avengers movie since Endgame. And so it's like, I think they're trying to do this to be like, hey, remember how much you like the Avengers movies? Remember how much fun and how hyped they are? Well, if you thought this was good, come back in December and, experience it again and in a new way, kind of a thing. That's my guess. And then also they even said that for select IMAX and Infinity Vision screenings, golly, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Infinity Vision. It's so dumb. It's all marketing speak. But they said that for those select theaters, they're going to have a special look for Avengers Doomsday. So again, my guess is that it'll be like an extra scene, maybe another little like 30 to a minute teaser that has new footage and that kind of thing. Either way, I feel like this is overboard. Like, for me, I never think it's a good idea whenever you see so much, not reveals, but so much footage from an upcoming movie, whether it's like 5 trailers or here's an extra scene or here's some extra footage that we're releasing or wanting you to come and see it. It feels desperate. It reminds me of what Sony was doing with the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Like, I remember with the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, they had like a a 10-minute trailer that was literally like, here's the prologue to the movie, and it came out like a week before the movie came out, and it was like, why are you doing this? The movie comes out next week. I'll just, if I want to see it, I'll buy my tickets. Or it just literally gave away the entire plot in the trailer. And I mean, like, we haven't gotten that far with Doomsday, thankfully, but again, to me, a lot of this does scream a little insecurity, which is strange because their pre-sale tickets are doing really well. I think they're close to $1 billion, if not over $1 billion already in pre-sales for just opening weekend. But we'll see. Again, for me, this just feels more like a cash grab, an excuse to make some more money off of an old movie people like, more than the required viewing that they were saying it. And because I mean, they even talked about I seeing a quote for Avengers Doomsday from the directors where they said, quote, "It's going to connect the story of the two movies. There's a natural progression from Endgame into Doomsday, which is also inclusive of all the other stories that have been playing out. But I think it's important to see Endgame in theaters again for two reasons. One, if you want to have a lot of fun cheering and screaming and reliving all the emotions you had the first time you saw it. Two, I think it's required viewing for the following the story in Doomsday. If you saw Endgame when it was originally released, you couldn't see this coming." So they were really hyping up this cut of Avengers Endgame, and to me, it feels like a lot more like a marketing ploy than actual build up and creation, if that makes sense. But we'll see. I might go see it if there's a theater nearby that's playing it and I've got some free time and cash. But if not, I feel like whatever extra footage is there is going to be released online within 2 days, if not sooner, when it comes out. But we'll see. But moving on to some other good news. National Treasure 3 is finally happening, and we have a script, says the director. So obviously, we have the National Treasure movies from Disney starring Nick Cage and oh man, what's her name? My bad. I just say Diane Kruger. Yes, and then Sean Bean was in the first one. Christopher Plummer was in the first one. Justin Bartha was in both of them. I'm excited for this. I like the first two National Treasure movies. Like, I'm not going to pretend that they're like the most amazing thing or they hold a candle to like Indiana Jones, but they're in that Indiana Jones vein, which I appreciated. And there was an earnestness and a fun to them that I really appreciated. And now, according to the director, I'm horrible with names. John Turtle Tab. I don't know. I can't say his name. But he's saying, quote, "It's happening. You're the first people I've said this out loud to. I've not said anything before this, but you deserve to have the scoop. It's finally real. Now it's Hollywood real, meaning things could happen. Nick Cage gets hit by a bus, there's no National Treasure 3. If I get hit by a bus, there's probably a National Treasure 3. Welcome to Hollywood." So basically he was confirming that the original cast is coming back, he's coming back. They have a script that they like, that they're willing to do. So I'm excited for this. We have The Mummy returning, I believe, next year. It might be 2028. I can't remember. So I'm happy because I've lamented the fact that we don't have kind of the old-fashioned blockbuster adventure movies like a Pirates of the Caribbean or a National Treasure or a Mummy anymore. We don't really have those. Everything is either really, really big and bombastic, and it's like, here's the most epic thing, you've ever seen on screen, like an Odyssey, which I love and I enjoyed. Don't get me wrong on that. Or we have the superhero movie where it's CGI and all these other worldly creatures and this is incredible, insane, blah. And again, I like those too. Obviously, I've made my whole Substack about that kind of stuff. But I am glad to be kind of getting here's just a fun action adventure movie that's a treasure hunt. Like we're trying to stop some bad guys from getting some treasure. Maybe we learn a little lesson about friendship and family along the way, and then boom, we're done after 2 hours, and just have some fun chase sequences, some great music. I love Trevor Rabin's scores for both of those movies, so I'm excited to see him. I hope, please God, let him come back. So I'm excited for this. I think this will be good for Disney and just good for cinema. Just here you go. Here's something that that you can just kind of sit back and relax and enjoy and know it's going to have some quality to it. And I mean, the fact that they waited this long until they had a script that they were comfortable with gives me hope that it's like, okay, so this isn't just a nostalgic cash grab. Because they had a National Treasure Disney Plus series, but it was about a completely different set of people with a couple of the main casts showing up as cameos. And I was like, this is really just National Treasure in name only, and you got Trevor Rabin to do the music, and that's it. So I'm excited to see them come back with Nick Cage and all that, because Nick Cage, I mean, it's Nick Cage. And the great thing about this is that he still is a big name in Hollywood. It's not one of those things where it's like, oh, great, well, our lead is no longer attracting audiences. Like, the dude just had Spider Noir that came out earlier this year, although I heard that didn't do great viewing numbers wise, but I'm excited for this. I can't wait. Bring it on. Next, we have an announcement on RoboCop is getting a TV show from Amazon Prime Video, and it has been confirmed that Dan Stevens is going to be playing RoboCop / Officer Murphy for the TV show. I didn't even know that this was happening, but two, I'm kind of conflicted because it's very much those original RoboCop movies are a product of their time and you know, have that 80s cheese and filmmaking that just works. And then I like the reboot that came out in 2014. I know that, you know, a lot of people are like, well, it's not the original, but it tried to do something different. It tried to have something to say, and it was kind of scary relevant to what we're dealing with now, especially with the rise of AI and all that. And so I think there's a place for the thematic elements of a RoboCop TV show. For me, the big thing is I just... maybe if they didn't do an origin movie with it, if they just didn't, because I think that was the thing that hurt the reboot a lot, is that it was kind of just a similar plot to the first RoboCop movie, the original RoboCop movie. And so it's like, you have some added elements to it, but it's essentially the same plot and same beats from the first movie. So here, I think the big thing that they have to do is, one, don't go insane with it like a RoboCop 2 or 3, but also just this is one of those things where you can kind of put your own stamp on it. It's like, as long as you have the spirit of what the originals were trying to do in terms of satire about corporations and consumerism, as well as like reliance on technology, and like where does, you know, how much of that reliance keeps us from actually accessing our humanity. If you can continue those themes but create a new story for it, I'm all for it, because again, this is only more relevant now than ever before. So I'm intrigued. I'll be interested to see how they approach it. Let me see. I don't know who else is attached to this. Let me see. So Peter Akko is attached as showrunner, writer, and co-executive producer. James Wan is involved as well as an executive producer. Original RoboCop writers are also executive producers. So it sounds like you have some people here who know what made RoboCop work in the first place. So I'm excited for that. I'm intrigued by this. I'll need to see more before I can be like, oh yeah, this looks great. But I'm intrigued. And lastly, something that I'm not intrigued about, again, getting good with these transitions. Ridley Scott is threatening us with a sequel to Alien Covenant and Prometheus. I mean, this makes sense because we've heard before where they've tried to do another Alien sequel, like a proper Alien sequel. I mean, we got Romulus, but that was enough of a spin-off to where, and even then, I'm pretty sure I heard Ridley Scott was reported as saying he didn't really like that was made, but he apparently has a tight hold on this franchise where he's like, no, I'm not letting you do this without me, kind of a thing. But he says that he isn't done with the Alien franchise. He's still developing a sequel to Alien Covenant, and Michael Fassbender would return. So I think part of the reason that this is getting traction is because he we did have Alien Romulus, which I enjoyed. I'm not saying it's a perfect movie, but it was enjoyable enough to where I was like, oh yeah, this feels comfortable. Like I could see myself watching Aliens or Alien Romulus, and then Aliens in succession is kind of like a here's my Aliens quote unquote trilogy, because we refuse to acknowledge that Alien 3 exists, including David Fincher. He says that as well. I think it was David Fincher. Yeah, yeah. I know Joss Whedon was involved in that, but I think that was at a script level, not directorial level. It's hard to keep track sometimes with those kinds of movies because so many hands are in the pie. But I mean, I'm not the biggest fan. I never watched Alien Covenant. It looked fine. I mean, part of the problem is that it has kind of the same issue that Terminator has, is that in the end, these all kind of feel like the exact same movie where it's like, we're stuck on a planet, we're stuck on a ship or a space station. Like, at least with Romulus, you had characters who had never interacted with aliens or weren't even looking for aliens. So it's kind of almost became like a haunted house slasher movie where it's like, we're just here to get some parts. Like, oh crap, there's face huggers. Oh no, there's xenomorphs. Oh crap, what do we do? Our android's gone nuts. And a CGI version of Ian Holm is here for some reason, or CGI slash puppet. But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Prometheus. I remember I've only watched it once, and the one time I watched it, I was like, it was a visually good looking movie. I mean the cast was great. Michael Fassbender was the best part about that movie. Along with Naomi Rapace, she was pretty good too. But I mean, in the end, it's one of those things where it really felt just like a director trying to get his conflicting feelings on religion and purpose of our purpose in the universe out on the page, and it just became a little bit of a muddled mess and everything like that. And I don't need I don't need some of these movies to be that heady, or like if you do, just do it in a more subtle way, where here was just like, I'm here. The fact that we have a deleted scene in Prometheus where, or it might have not been a deleted scene, but at least there was an idea of having one of the engineers literally be Jesus, and that was the reason, like, they hate us or whatever, is because we crucify. It was just one of those things where, like, okay, Ridley Scott, you're kind of hitting the nail on the head a little bit too hard there. That's a little bit too obvious. Let's try to be a little bit more subtle here, but I don't know. This doesn't excite me. I'd much rather have the sequel to Romulus, because that ended on a note. Apparently, that is an interesting note. Apparently, that is still in development, but I feel like Ridley Scott is going to be like, my movie comes out first. So who knows when and if we ever actually see a sequel to that. Which, if we don't, that's fine. But I did like the main characters of those films. Although now the actor who played the android is going to be Black Panther, so he may not even be available for a while to reprise his role from that movie. But overall, I enjoyed it. But if I don't get more, this is kind of like the Terminator franchise, where if I don't get more, I'm not sad. I have a few really good movies that I enjoy. In the case of Terminator, only 2, but Aliens at least 3. It's like, I don't mind if I don't see this franchise appear again and we just do something else. But we'll see. I'll be interested to see if it gets off the ground, because I mean, Alien Covenant did not do well at the box office, and fans are not really excited about his Alien movies anymore. So I wonder if maybe this is going to be one of those that just continues to get stuck in development hell, and especially because Ridley Scott hasn't had a great run at the box office lately. Between Napoleon was one of those where it was on streaming and in theaters, and I believe that was during the pandemic as well. So I can't fault him too much for that. Although that might have come out in 2023. I don't remember, but I remember that not getting received well or doing well. Gladiator 2 did okay, but I wasn't really interested in that, because I was like, the first Gladiator is perfect. I don't need any more Gladiator. So I just wonder if he's kind of lost his star power in Hollywood to where he really can't just command whatever budget and just have the creative freedom that he normally has. Like, really, I think the last movie that I liked by him that I saw was The Martian with Matt Damon, and I really liked that. He did a great job with that movie. But I just think this is one of those things where he's not willing to let it go, but I think he should, personally. But we'll see. We'll see what happens, but that's all the news I had for today. It was actually a decent news week. I was surprised. I didn't think it would, and I mean, we started off on a very sad note, but hopefully we can end this podcast on a high. Speaking of highs, I have a question from a subscriber. That wasn't a great segue, but hey, I'm trying. The paid subscriber question. Again, if you want to be able to submit your own questions, upgrade to the paid tier on my Substack. Just go to Substack, Loudner in the Basement. Check it out. It's a one button, and then it'll walk you through it. And I have that sale going on right now through the end of August. So August 31st at midnight, or no, not midnight, or 11:59 p.m. on August 31st, the sale will end. So you have until then to claim your 20% off on a 12-month subscription. Thank you so much for doing that if you do it. And if you don't, still thank you for listening. But here's the subscriber question that we have for today. It feels like half of the major movies coming out these days are page-to-screen adaptations. As a critic, do you think Hollywood relying so heavily on existing books for source material is a sign that original screenwriting is in trouble, or is taking a great book and translating it to visuals an art form in itself? Really good question. I really like this. For me, I've never had an issue with them adapting books, although I do think I've always thought it was funny that the Hunger Games author Susan Collins, I think that's her name, how she had like a deal where every time she writes a book, a movie is announced with the announcement of the book. Like, that's the author's dream right there. But I feel like, one, I don't mind it because I do think there's still a lot of original stories being told in Hollywood as it is, where it's just people making stuff up. But also, I think a lot of people don't realize how many things were actually based on books, like that we attribute to an original idea, when in reality it was them going off a book and then maybe making some changes. Like, a great example that I didn't know about until a few years ago was Die Hard. The first Die Hard was written, it was a written book. I don't know if it was called Die Hard. It might have been something else, but the basic outline of the story was from a book, and then they took that book and then made their own changes on it that made it the movie that we have today. And then, of course, obviously you have famous ones like Dune, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. I'm trying to think of something else. I mean, Blade Runner was from a short story, a short sci-fi story, that whole idea. So for me, I don't mind it because on the one hand, it's cool to see what people do with those written works and adapt them to screen, seeing those things that you imagined in your mind come alive, especially like something like Lord of the Rings. Like, if you can get a director like Peter Jackson for Lord of the Rings or Denis Villeneuve with Dune, who really has a respect and understanding of the source material, and bringing it to the big screen to maybe make it more accessible for modern audiences, or in some cases maybe even make them go back and read the book that the movie's based off of, I think that's a win, and I think that's great, because if you hear what any successful author will tell you, like, if you want to be a good writer, you have to read. So I think sometimes it's good that that happens, because one, people are reading, and two, I think it inspires people to take those ideas and make their own original thing. Like, there's so many. I mean, Star Wars inspired a whole generation of filmmakers to go and pursue their own thing. Or you have Indiana Jones, where it was George Lucas and Steven Spielberg being like, I was inspired by the serials that I watched growing up, the adventure serials I watched growing up as a kid, and I wanted to make my own version of that. So I think if it's something where, if this can be a gateway for people that see something that was adapted from book to screen and be like, wow, like, look what a movie was able to do with this written work. Like, is there something that I like that maybe one day I could do, or maybe I can take what that book did, or that book or in that movie gives me an idea to make my own thing. I want to do that. Like, I think that's a win. So I don't mind it. I don't think that the original screenwriter is in trouble. Plus, you have a lot like in the comic book space where they look at the comic books, but then kind of remix them and make them their own thing, for better or worse in some cases. And it also makes me think of a quote I heard from the writer of Ender's Game, Orson Scott Card. I listened to an interview from him once a long time ago, and he said that one of the things that he always advised his writing students was, if you want to get into screenwriting, write a book, because that's how you get noticed. Because Hollywood does really look a lot at novels for inspiration and adaptations. But yeah, I think that I think so far I would say there's a healthy balance. Like, if everything was based on the book, or on a book, excuse me, then I would be a little bit more concerned. But I do think, especially with just the amount of content out there right now, that there's a lot of stuff that just is original. Or again, like, and even in some cases, like I know that the Jack Reacher show starring Alan Richardson actually is inspired, like each season is inspired by a Reacher novel. But I've also seen a lot of people say, well, this is basically just only taking the characters and the setting from the novel, but then doing their own thing. And again, that's kind of what a lot of comic book movies do, where they're like, we're looking at this specific storyline, but we're also kind of making it our own. So it's like, I feel like that, I don't know if I would count that as like a adaptation, is more of just, we're taking something and then making our own thing with it. So it doesn't bug me. I don't think that original screenwriting is in trouble. I think the biggest thing right now is studios being willing to take a chance on original screenwriting, and maybe that's more of what this question's pertaining to. And so that would be my one big concern, is that studios are really playing it safe now. They're all about the big recognizable IPs. You're not having a lot of original stuff like popping off, although I mean, even the original stuff, like, big names like Project Hail Mary, that was based on a book. But at the same time, I don't mind that, because it's not like that was a recognizable IP. So if this is the way that we get to that point where original ideas are more accepted and Hollywood's more open to those, then I'm willing to put up with that. And again, there's a lot of great books out there, and I think if it inspires people to read more, I'm all for that, because I do think we have a big issue in our society where people don't read enough. But that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother thing. But I do think when adaptations get made and they do good enough, it opens the door for original works to come out, where it'd be like, hey, I saw this, and I decided, well, I could write something like that, but put my own spin and ideas on top of that and make my own thing with it. Again, just kind of go back to the Indiana Jones idea of like, hey, I watched these serials growing up. Now I made my own adventure action hero. So I think, because everything's cyclical, so I think we will see that come back around, where it's like we see stuff that's inspired by a lot of the popular stories and movies of our current generation, where in 10, 15 years, all of a sudden a lot of these new original IPs pop up and really start to become household names. So roundabout way, I'm not worried, and I do think translating a book into physical media is an art form all of itself, especially with something like high fantasy or sci-fi, where you have to go off the descriptions but also make it visually work. Like, for instance, in Lord of the Rings, Sauron is never really described as anything more than a shadow. Like, the whole Eye of Sauron thing is just a metaphor in the book, but in the movie they obviously have the Dark Tower with the giant eye, which I'm fine with. I know there's some Tolkien purists, they're like, that's too on the nose, but I appreciate it for what it is, and again, it works in that universe. Being able to read that book and be like, okay, how do we visually represent this villain that doesn't really have a form? We need to have him present in the movie, but we also don't want to just have, a ghost running around in armor and be like, oh, that's the bad guy, be scared. So, I mean, the fact that they were able to pull it out the way they did was incredible and impressive. So, yeah, I do think there's an art to that for sure. I mean, even with Project Hail Mary, like in the book, we do get a description of Rocky, but then to see that actually on screen and work the way it does is impressive and takes a lot of talent. So, I do think I'm not worried about originality yet. If it is something where we never see an original screenplay ever again, then maybe. But I feel like just because there's so many streaming services and so many movies coming out, that there is a lot of original things still being made. It's just they may not be the mainstream right now, or people do not realize they're not based on a book. Because it's very rare that, I mean, even the Dune movies didn't really ever announce themselves as being based on novels, I don't think. Like, it's not like in the trailer, like, based on the best-selling, sci-fi novel of all time, Dune. Like, I don't remember them really marketing on it being a book. It was just like, here's a sci-fi movie, and then everyone's like, oh, and by the way, this is based on a book from the 60s. And it's like, oh, okay. So, that I know that was a long-winded answer, but I really like that question. It really had to make me think about it. I appreciate that. But before we get out of here, I'll tell you what I'm watching. I've been watching Lanterns, the new DC show on HBO Max. I had talked about this a lot, where I was skeptical at first based on the original trailer, and then kind of getting a little bit more excited as they showed more comic booky elements in the newest trailer. Well, I've watched the first 2 episodes. I won't spoil anything, but I will say I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I was a little trepidatious with episode 1 just based on what they were doing with Hal Jordan and how they seemed to only know one swear word, and that was the F word. But episode 2 really just clicked for me, and I was like, okay, I get what you're doing. I get it. I'm on board. Jon Stewart and his great Aaron St. Pierre, I believe is his name, plays Jon Stewart. He's great. Kyle Chandler is Hal Jordan. Awesome. Love how casually DC comic book Easter eggs are dropped. Like, we get a Mogo reference in episode 2. We get a Gotham reference in episode 2 as well. And again, the way it's just naturally be like, yep, this exists in this world. I really appreciate it, and I'm loving every second of it. So I'll definitely have a full season review on that whenever it finishes. I believe it finishes up in early October because there's 8 episodes. But I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And then I finished X-Men 97. I have a review for that out on the Substack, Loudner in the Basement again, that you can check out. It's spoiler filled, so if you haven't finished this season, don't read until after that unless you don't care. And then next week I will be seeing Coyote versus Acme this weekend. And so I will have a review for that out on the Substack next Wednesday. So be on the lookout for that. But other than that, I think that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much again for listening, and I'll be back next week with more news. Bye.